What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the playthrough reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing Resident Evil 7. We've made it this far. It's been about a year and a half, give or take, since I've started playing the Resident Evil playthrough, and when I initially started, Resident Evil Village wasn't even announced yet, so this was where I was planning on stopping, but now that Village is out, that's coming up next. But today, we're going to talk about Resident Evil 7 and my thoughts on it. And then I'm going to rank it along with all the other Resident Evil games, and we'll see exactly where it fits in. So with that being said, if you like watching me review and rank different video game franchises, then please head on over to my channel, Tresinator, and please subscribe. And if you like this video, it would also mean a great deal to me if you could give it a big thumbs up. With that being said, let's remind everyone at home what my current ranking of the Resident Evil games looks like from 0 all the way up to 6. So there you have it. So Resident Evil 7 was released on January 24th, 2017 for the Xbox One, PS4, and PC. It was directed by Koshi Nakanishi, and it was written by Muramaso Seto and Richard Piercy. Now, before we take a deep dive into the plot, overall, I thought Resident Evil 7 was actually very refreshing because it was very different from the rest of the franchise, but it did still kind of have a Resident Evil feel that the earlier games had. And I'll get right into that once I start talking a little bit about the story and I talk a little bit about the gameplay. But first, let's take a look at the plot from Wikipedia. In July 2017, Ethan Winters is drawn to a derelict plantation in Dulvey, Louisiana by a message from his wife, Mia, who has been presumed dead since going missing in 2014. He finds Mia imprisoned in the basement of a derelict house and frees her. She tries to lead them out, but suddenly becomes violent and attacks him, forcing him to kill her. After receiving a call from a woman named Zoe offering assistance, Ethan is attacked by a revived Mia, who cuts his left hand off with a chainsaw. Ethan seemingly kills Mia again in self-defense, before Jack, the patriarch of the Baker family, appears and captures Ethan. After Zoe reattaches his hand, Ethan is held captive by Jack, his wife Marguerite, and their son Lucas, along with a seemingly catatonic elderly woman in a wheelchair. Ethan escapes but is pursued around the house by Jack, who continually attacks him and displays powerful regenerative abilities. In the basement, Ethan discovers sludge-covered mutated creatures known as molded. Zoe reveals that she is Jack's daughter and that the family and Mia are infected, but can be cured with a special serum. Ethan makes his way to an old house to retrieve the serum ingredients, kills Marguerite, and has visions of a young girl. Lucas captures Zoe and Mia and forces Ethan to navigate a booby-trapped barn to find them. He chases away Lucas and frees Zoe and Mia. Zoe develops 2 serums, but they are attacked by Jack, now heavily mutated. Ethan kills him using one of the serums. Ethan, as the player, must choose to cure either Mia or Zoe. If Ethan chooses Zoe, Mia is heartbroken, despite Ethan's promise to send help. As he and Zoe flee on boat, Zoe reveals that the Bakers were infected after Mia arrived with a young girl named Eveline when the wreck of a tanker ship washed ashore. Eveline stops their escape by calcifying Zoe, killing her, and Ethan is knocked from the boat by a creature. If Ethan chooses Mia, which is the canonic path, Zoe gives a bitter farewell to him and Mia. As he and Mia flee on a boat, they come across the crashed tanker, where they are attacked by the creature and knocked from the boat. In either case, Mia awakens next to the wrecked ship and searches for Ethan while experiencing visions of Eveline, who refers to Mia as her mother. Eventually, Mia's memory is restored, revealing that she was a covert operative for a corporation that developed Eveline as a bioweapon, codenamed E001. Mia and Agent Alan Droney were to escort Eveline as she was transported aboard the tanker. Eveline escaped containment, killed Alan, and sank the ship. She infected Mia in an effort to force her to be her mother. Mia finds Ethan and gives him a vial of Eveline's genetic material. If Ethan cured Mia, she resists Eveline's control long enough to seal Ethan out of the ship. If he cured Zoe, Mia succumbs to Eveline's control and attacks Ethan, forcing him to kill her. Ethan discovers a hidden laboratory inside the abandoned salt mine. He learns that Eveline is a bioorganic weapon capable of infecting people with a psychotropic mold that gives her control over her victims' minds, resulting in insanity, mutation, and superhuman regenerative abilities. Eveline grew up obsessed with having a family, driving her to infect Mia and the Bakers and lure Ethan. Lucas was immunized against Eveline's control by her creators, the Connections, in exchange for providing observation on her. Using the lab equipment and Eveline's genetic material, Ethan synthesizes a toxin to kill her and proceeds through tunnels that lead back to the Baker house. He overcomes Eveline's hallucinations and injects Eveline with the toxin. She reverts to her other form, the elderly woman in a wheelchair. Eveline has been rapidly aging since escaping, Eveline mutates into a large monster, and aided by the arrival of a military squad led by Chris Redfield, Ethan kills her with an anti-bioweapon pistol. Canonically, Chris extracts Ethan and Mia in a helicopter branded with the Umbrella Corporation logo. Okay, so there you have it, and that is the main story. That's not including the 2 DLCs, Not a Hero and End of Zoe, or the band footage, which, I mean, I guess it's canonical, but it doesn't really fit into the rest of the story. I did finish both Not a Hero and End of Zoe just to kind of get the full story from the game. I liked both of them, but let's talk about this story. So overall, we come from Resident Evil 6, which had this huge action movie Michael Bay-esque story that was kind of confusing and all over the place, and I didn't really enjoy it too much, and a lot of people consider 6 to be one of the worst games in the franchise. This story was such a smaller story, and it was so refreshing, and it really, I think they needed to kind of take a step back from the direction that they were going in if they wanted to continue on with the franchise. So I really like this new direction that they went into. It's in a great new setting. I oftentimes enjoy smaller stories as opposed to like the bigger, we have to save the whole world, we have to save the whole universe type of story. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why I really like this, because it's just a small story about this guy, Ethan. He doesn't really know anything that's going on. His wife had been she had like a super secret job that she had to keep hidden from him. And the story keeps you guessing the whole time, because it's like, how does this fit into Resident Evil? Because it doesn't really fit into the rest of the game until the end, until we kind of start uncovering who Eveline is and uncovering what Mia's job was. And they start talking about bioorganic weapons and stuff like that. So I think it's a fantastic new direction for them to go in. I can't wait to see what they do with it when I get to Village. And also I felt like this was kind of a love letter to horror movies. It felt like you were almost playing like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game. So you have this like Southern hillbilly type family, and it felt like an homage to like the slasher flicks or to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to like those type of movies, really. And I think that that's fantastic, because I mean, Resident Evil is one of, if not the first survival horror game, so it kind of fits the whole mold and the whole genre. And the reveal at the end, because I always felt like there was something going on with the elderly woman who I was referring to as Granny the whole time. And then at the end, when you find out that that's who it is, I mean, I was blown away by this twist.
You.
It's Granny!
Why does everyone hate me?
The whole time? Yeah, she ain't dead yet. Sometimes the twists don't pay off. Sometimes you can see them from a mile away. And I know they did make mention of her aging rapidly in the papers, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together until I actually saw her. And I think the reveal was fantastic once I got there. And normally I talk about the voice acting. So overall, I think the voice acting in this game was pretty great. I found nothing wrong with any of the characters' voice acting in this game. The scare factor too. I think the scare factor in this game, it might be the scariest Resident Evil game. I think partly because it's first person and there's a lot of jumps and a lot of things come at you. I would have to put this up there. I guess Resident Evil 1 is probably one of the most scary games, but I think this one might actually beat it. So thoughts on the gameplay. I think they completely reworked this game. I mean, the franchise starts off from the fixed camera, and then we have this like over the shoulder third person for years. And now we're in first person Resident Evil mode, and it works. It works really well. I think it does feel like a very different game from the rest of the franchise, but I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. We do still have the crafting with like the herbs and stuff. I don't know. It was a little weird that you couldn't just eat the regular herbs. You had to like mix it with the chem fluid to make the health potion or whatever. Sometimes the gameplay did get a little frustrating for me. I mean, overall, this was completely refreshing from the last installment, and super tense and super on the edge of your seat and very scary. But there is a little bit of a learning curve, especially I played it on PC. So it was different than if I had a controller in my hand. I played it with a mouse and keyboard. This game was made to play on consoles, and the PC controls sometimes took a little getting used to. Changing your weapon was sometimes a little bit of a hassle. I also found it weird that like you couldn't just like go into your inventory, switch your weapons, or combine herbs, whatever, and the game would pause like it has in the past Resident Evil games. And I guess a lot of games kind of do this now. so it's not that huge of a complaint. But there were many times where I was kind of stumbling with my inventory as I was trying to fend off some enemies. And Ethan is slow. He's very slow. He runs slow. He changes weapons slow. He reloads slow. But I think that's kind of the point. I think it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. So again, not a huge complaint, but there was a lot of times where I'm like yelling at my screen to reload or change weapons or something of the like. And it does get a little frustrating, but again, I think that's just because it's trying to keep the difficulty at a certain level. This game's also not overloaded by a bunch of different enemy types. I mean, there's really like the Baker family, and then there's maybe 3 or 4 different types of the molded. So you don't have just a bunch of different zombies, a bunch of different monsters, which I actually kind of enjoy because the way that they did this, you're not overwhelmed with more enemies. You just know who you're fighting, and everyone seems like they can do damage to you. Every type of villain seems like they can do damage to you. The boss fights were great. I don't know if there was ever a boss fight that I didn't die in. So there is a difficulty curve here. But again, not a bad thing. I actually enjoy that. And there's only maybe 6 or 7 boss fights in the game if you're, I think even including the DLC. There's definitely less than 10. So I think that the boss fights were a lot of fun. I think you have to kind of plan your strategy around them. You don't just, go in guns blazing like you do with a lot of other games. You really have to strategize what you're going to do and how you're going to attack each boss. And I think that definitely makes for good boss fights and for a good game. And the game just kind of feels like you're playing in a horror movie. I mean, the whole time it just feels like you're in a horror movie. And I think that's what they were going for with this game. So with that being said, where am I going to rank this with the rest of the Resident Evil franchise? I've given this some thought, and I know a lot of people actually consider this to be the number 1. So it is definitely in the top tier of the Resident Evil games. Normally, I'll start from the bottom, work my way up, or from the top. And I think because it is top tier, let's start from the top. So is it better than Resident Evil 4? I don't think so. I still think Resident Evil 4 did a lot more 4 games, and I still think I actually had more fun playing Resident Evil 4 than I did Resident Evil 7. But I do think it's close. So that begs the question now, is it better than Resident Evil 2? And this is really tough. But the Resident Evil 2 remake was just so good. I mean, it got so many Game of the Year nominations, and the nostalgia factor, and it looked great. And I don't think it's better than Resident Evil 2. So let's go now Code Veronica. I do think it's better than Code Veronica. I think it did more for games for Code Veronica. I think it did more for Resident Evil than Code Veronica. The boss fights are better. Just a completely refreshing new game, completely refreshing new Resident Evil, reinvented the game kind of. So I'm going to say this is better than Code Veronica, and I'm going to put this at the number 3 spot. So your new rankings for the Resident Evil franchise with the playthrough, we have at the top spot Resident Evil 4, number 2, Resident Evil 2 Remake, number 3, Resident Evil 7, number 4, Resident Evil Code Veronica X, number 5, Resident Evil 3 Remake. Number 6, Resident Evil HD Remaster. Number 7, Resident Evil Revelations 2. Number 8, Resident Evil 0. Number 9, Resident Evil 5. Number 10, Resident Evil Revelations. And number 11, Resident Evil 6. So that's where the rankings stand right now. One more game to go. I honestly don't really know anything about Village. Ever since it came out, I've been kind of keeping a low profile with it. I haven't read any of the reviews. I did see some scores, and I know that it's kind of like around the same rating that Resident Evil 7's at, but I have no idea what the storyline is. I've barely watched any gameplay. So I'm excited to kind of jump into this not knowing at all what it has to do with, or really where people put it up against other Resident Evil games. But who knows? Maybe I'll love it. Maybe I'll hate it. I have no idea. But anyway, I am getting started on that soon. And then once I finish, my review will be out on the channel. That being said, if you guys liked what you saw here, it would mean a great deal to me if you could head on over to my channel, Trezinator, and subscribe. Also give this video a big thumbs up. And that's it for me. So hopefully I'll see you guys on some of my other videos. Thank you for watching.